Monday, November 7th, Town of Falmouth Board of Selectmen meeting. I'll invite you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to begin our meeting by welcoming and introducing our new Assistant Town Manager, Peter Johnson-Staub, who will be joining us now, and I guess will also be serving as substitute minute taker for tonight, so putting you right to work on your first day of work, and we appreciate having you here and look forward to many years of working with you.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Second item is just to remind you that our agenda tonight does include a joint meeting with the Finance Committee. We expect that to start about 8 o'clock. We have two hearings that are timed before that, so we'll try to work around those as best we can. Next item is a proclamation. Ms. Moran?
Yes, can I call Megan Anderson up?
Sure.
Megan, if you don't mind coming to the podium and maybe giving us a little bit of an intro before I read the proclamation.
Sure. So this has come about as the Energy Committee has been looking at a way to have the town apply to the Department of Energy Resources to become a green community, which avails the town to some grant funding. We have the first three criteria already done and have been done for a number of years. And we got together with the building commissioner and we discussed the fact that the town enforces the current International Energy Conservation Code, which happens right now to be more stringent than the stretch code. So we thought we had a window of opportunity here where we would like to have the selectmen make a proclamation to the Department of Energy Resources basically saying that the town enforces the current code and it exceeds, just as I said, the stretch code, and that would satisfy hopefully our criteria for the stretch code within the 5 criteria of becoming a green community.
Excellent, and I understand that Mike Duffany
Yes.
helped out the committee.
He did.
Sam was
Yep.
involved, Paul Raymer from the committee was involved, and it's been something you've been working on for a long time.
Absolutely.
So, congratulations, and with that, I will read the proclamation.
Okay.
In July 2016, Massachusetts amended its current building codes to include 2015 ICC/ASHRAE 62.2-2013. The update includes state amendments for the base energy code and, whereas the current International Energy Conservation Code is stricter than the state's stretch energy code, and whereas the town of Falmouth is enforcing the current IECC, and whereas the town of Falmouth enforces the current IECC code through its building permit requirements, which are more comprehensive and stricter than the state's stretch code, and thereby satisfies the Mass Department of Energy Resources Green Communities Criterion 5, which states, quote, set requirements to minimize life cycle energy costs for new construction. The town of Falmouth hereby affirms that it will adhere to the current Massachusetts State Building Code and Energy Code. I hereby certify that at a regular meeting of the Falmouth Board of Selectmen, for which a quorum was present, the above proclamation was made by a vote of, for, or against. And Mr. Chair, would you call for the vote?
We have that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, so a vote of 5 for and 0 against.
It passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Next item is a few reminders, announcements. First is that to remind you all that we have town meetings starting next Monday night. It will be up at Falmouth High School, and we're starting at 7 o'clock on Monday, November 14th. We have no special town meeting scheduled for this year, and so we'll start on Monday and go as many nights as necessary. The second is the amended shellfish open areas listing, and this is pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 130, Section 52. The following changes to the shellfish regulations are hereby adopted. And this is the closing of the area for shellfish resource management. Great Pond SC 11.0. The waters of Great Pond, to include all connected inlets and wetland, are closed until December 14th, 2016, except the family shellfish area between Priscilla Street and Bourne Street will be open on Saturday, May 5th, 2016, and shall remain open on Saturdays and Sundays until May 1st, 2017. And this regulation shall not apply to the taking of scallops in Great Pond. And this actually requires a motion and a vote.
So I will make a motion for allowance of the shellfish regulations as read.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. The ayes have it. Next are a few sports-related announcements. First, to let you know that the Falmouth Academy girls soccer team, the 5th seed, beat the 12th seed today in the state tournament, 6-0 against Upper Cape Tech. Tomorrow, the Falmouth High School girls field hockey team will be playing in their round at Tuesday at 2:30 versus Medway. And I'm sure that now we've talked about their field, they'd love to see us up at their field, cheering them on at that game. And then, as I'm sure you're all aware, the Falmouth High School football team is now ranked 14th in the state. They have their next tournament game on Friday night at Gulf Fuller Field against Westwood at 7 o'clock, and we wish all those teams success. Any other announcements from the board? Okay. Public comment, if anyone has something they'd like to comment on that is not on our agenda, they may do so. Please limit your comments to under 2 minutes, something not on our agenda. Mr. Connolly?
Do you want to go first, Andy? No, okay. Hi, I'm Annie Connolly. The Executive Director for the Falmouth Housing Trust, and I wanted to take a minute and invite everybody to the open house for Oddfellows. We're going to have the open house this Friday, Veterans Day, from 12:30 to 2. We're going to have remarks at 1 p.m. It will be over here at the site at 1 Chancery Lane. We're renaming the building 1 Chancery Lane instead of the Oddfellows Hall. The project is completed. We just have a couple items that we're buttoning up with the building department for our certificate of occupancy. The public is invited. We'll be giving tours. We'll say a couple words, and that's it. We're very proud of the project, and we want to share it with the community because they are truly the ones that made it successful and even possible. Thanks.
Congrats.
And Mr. Dufresne, just before that open house?
Sure.
Before that open house,
Adrian Dufresne, representing Precinct 2. And again, I'm here to remind the Board of Selectmen of the parking meters on the only ballpark in the town of Falmouth, which is up in Falmouth Heights. And the meters were put there, probably 50 or 60 years ago in order to help the businesses that were there so that those parking spaces wouldn't be dominated by beachgoers. Well, the beach season is over, and on behalf of all the young people that like to use that park, to my knowledge, they are still in effect. And I see you have new meters now, and they must have cost a lot of money, and it's going to be a shame if you take them out of commission. But I firmly do not believe that ballpark should have parking meters. It's the only ball field in the town of Falmouth that has parking meters on it. And they were specifically put there in my early living in Falmouth Heights. I've lived there since 1953, and they were always removed after Columbus weekend. So I appeal to the Board of Selectmen as the authority that somehow or other they either be covered over. I suppose removing them may be a little difficult, but they could be covered over so that the people who go there with their kids pretty soon will be into all kinds of school games, and why should they have to pay to go to that park? My second concern is Bristol parking lot. Our beaches, are $1 million business for the town of Falmouth, and the split rail fence that outlines the parking facility at Bristol Beach has been in a terrible, broken down condition for the entire summer. And I know we're coming into fall, and every time I go by there, I keep telling myself, is this how we're going to check and maintain the aesthetics of, quote, our property. So I would ask the Board of Selectmen to go take a look. Doesn't take much to fix a split rail fence. If I was healthier, I would probably volunteer, but I'm not, so I'll let one of you guys do it. But meanwhile, I really think these things should be looked at and taken care of. You know, I heard through the grapevine that the DPW was going to build one of the fences, which, since we bought them the mill a few years ago, I was on the Finance Committee when I voted for that mill, but we should not have to wait to make something that we own look right. If it was in front of your house or somebody else's house, we would fix it right away. So I asked the Board of Selectmen, take a ride up Falmouth Heights and see what can be done. That's my comment for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd also like to remind everyone that this Friday, November 11th at 11 o'clock, we will be having the Veterans Service Memorial at the Veterans Park in front of the Falmouth Library, and I believe that we'll be starting off with a walk, usually about 20 minutes of walking down.
Correct.
At the
and
green?
Meeting at the green and moving on down. And I believe that Mr. Duffy will be our guest speaker, the keynote speaker at that event.
Right.
Any other public comment? Next item is to discuss our minutes of the meetings from October 17th, public session. One on the first page that we can get to our secretary is the field hockey win was over Sandwich, not over Dartmouth. And this is under 5 under announcements. Turned out they also beat Cohasset that night also, but I hadn't announced that, so we can't amend the minutes to include that.
And I noticed a couple of typographical errors. I had mentioned that I was thankful that the Cape Cod Commission had become more of a planning agency than regulatory, and I think she misquoted and said that she thought you said that.
Right.
And then on the Veterans Council appointments, it was a silly one that said Inspector of Animals under it. I don't know what, she must have been using the microphone to do dictation there. So I think that should have said that they were excellent candidates.
That was the next item, was that the Inspector of Animals was the next appointment.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yep.
That was on the agenda, but
Oh, okay.
it still doesn't quite, yeah.
And there's another typo that said there was 65 veterans in Falmouth. It's 6,500.
And that was back on the warrant discussion?
Mr. Chair?
What page was that, Doug?
Was in the discussion of the appointments for the Veterans Council. I'll tell you in a second.
I think it was during the warrant discussion on the 6,500.
Okay, yeah, maybe that's right.
Page 9, the middle of the page.
Oh, yeah. It's about the fourth line down.
Yep.
2 zeros.
Another-
Mr. Patterson?
Continuing down that page, just above number 7, there is no indication of what article I was actually recommending, so I think it was Mr. Patterson's motion to recommend indefinite postponement for Article 36 at the request of the petitioner. I think the article number needs to be in that sense.
Right.
Okay, right. Any other changes to the October 17th public session minutes?
With those changes, I'll make a motion to accept those minutes.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. No abstentions. Our next item is the October 17th executive session.
I move approval as submitted,
Second.
And not to release?
and not to release. Thank you.
Motion to approve and not release. And second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. On our agenda, we had the October 24th minutes, but they have not been prepared, so we'll move on to our summary of actions. First is to approve the applications for a special agricultural liquor license. This is for Coastal Vineyards at Mahoney's Garden Center Ladies' Night for Thursday, November 17th.
I move approval.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. Next, application for an annual entertainment license. This is for the Hostmark Hotels Group doing business as Falmouth Holiday Inn, 291 Jones Road. And just to be clear, the application we have is a Monday through Saturday license, 11 a.m. to 1 a.m., recorded in live music. The Sunday license is a separate license, and if they want the Sunday entertainment, they actually need to apply for a separate license for that. But just to be clear, this is just until December 31st, 2016, and the building must be insulated so the noise cannot be heard outside the building.
Move approval?
Second?
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. The ayes have it. It is now 7:15, and is actually, we have a public hearing, our fee hearing is scheduled for 7:15, so we will hold off on other business until we can conclude with our two hearings. We have a 7:15 hearing and a 7:45 hearing. And this is, to be clear, this is a fee hearing that's starting about the public hearing on fees. We will not be making any vote on these fees this evening. We hope to do that at our next meeting, next regularly scheduled meeting on November 21st. But it's a chance to get the word out as to what is being proposed by the departments and let people know and have them get back to us what they think. As provided under Chapter 119 of the Code of Falmouth, a public hearing will be held in the Selectmen's Meeting Room, Falmouth Town Hall, on Monday, November 7th, 2016, at 7:15 p.m. to establish and promulgate fees which are effective as of January 1st, 2017, to be charged by town departments and agencies except as provided by Mass General Laws, School Department, Planning Board, Library, Town Clerk, Town Treasurer, and the collective taxes. And what we have, it's been posted, and it was in the Enterprise on the 28th, are the proposed changes. The actual list of fees is about 12 to 14 pages of fees, and the only ones that we're talking about are the ones that have some changes being proposed to them. And it really follows under just 6 or 7 departments. For the beach department, the proposal is that a 1-week sticker goes from $60 to $70, 2-week sticker goes from $70 to $120, 3-week sticker goes from $80 to $170, the 4-week sticker from $90 to $220, a seasonal sticker from $200 to $250, and the resident taxpayer sticker goes from $30 to $35. Mr. McGardo, if you'd like to.
Yes, Bruce McGardo with the Beach Department. I'd like to sort of present an overview of how these numbers were arrived at. Don Hoffer, the beach superintendent, asked me to go do a survey of the towns on the Cape to see what their beach fees were. We've focused primarily on the towns that have the largest number of beaches and/or ponds, which would be Dennis and Barnstable. And what we discovered is some things are spot on, they're right on line, and other things are, shall we say, the town's very generous in some of its 1-week, 2-week, and 3-week fees. So what we discovered was that in some cases, the resident fee is already $40 at Dennis and Barnstable. Our request at $35 puts it in line with several other towns, but not as high as some other towns. It tends to run, the fewer oceanfront beaches you have, the less you charge, because there's less demand. With demand comes maybe an increase in fee. And so, since the beach fees have not been addressed and requests for increase not been asked since 2003, it seemed appropriate with the increases in salaries and wages, especially with in line with the minimum wage going up a third time, that maybe it would be time to get some revenue coming back to the town to help offset some of those other figures that are going out in salaries and wages. So I'd be happy to answer any questions for you, if you have any. Mr. Brown was at our beach committee meeting the night we discussed this and has an in-depth background being present that day as to the dialogue that went back and forth to arrive at these figures.
Can you give us a rough idea of how many, and it doesn't have to be broken down by weeks, but how many seasonal sticker or non-resident stickers do we give out compared to resident stickers do we give out?
Non-resident stickers?
Which I think is everything.
We do have that figure. The greatest number is in the 1-week, 2-week, and the fewest is the seasonal. I don't have that figure on the top of my head, I'm
Okay.
sorry. But I can tell you that resident stickers are right around 14,000 for our parking spaces that are around 1,200 a day. The competition, quite frankly, whatever the source, resident, non-resident, day tripper, hotel, motel, whatever, is very keen when you're looking at 1,200 spaces and maybe in excess of 18,000 people that have some sort of permit to get to your beaches. So, and I certainly don't need to share with you, other than the fact that you know the summer was a bluebird summer. Our revenues were the best they've ever been. With less than 3 or 4 days of rain, we were hustling every day. And we were crowded by most days at 10 or 11. Old Silver gets crowded by 9:30 with backups that the police department will agree to that sometimes exceeded back to the Rotary on 28A. So the competition, again, is keen. Everybody's beach is a pocket beach. It's a neighborhood beach. It's my beach. And they fight fiercely for the right to make sure that they have a parking space because they bought their beach sticker, or they're a resident in town and they want to be cared for in the best way possible.
And now, the day passes the hotels give out, is that fee going to stay the same, or is there a fee for those?
The beach committee did not recommend a change for that.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am?
Ms. Singhbar?
Could you just explain the seasonal sticker? So someone who's a non-resident can buy the seasonal sticker, and does it stay on one car? Does it?
Yeah, we don't have, we have a problem with that.
Okay.
But it's not, its intention is to be a sticker that has a registration to it. And so we like to ask our parking attendants to check and make sure that that matches.
But it's hard to do.
But we do have a propensity to share lots of stickers. And so, yeah, the town loses revenue on that. But a seasonal sticker is something, if you were coming to Falmouth for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, that kind of thing,
Right.
that's a bargain for you. Because at $20 a day at Old Silver, it doesn't take too many days before you run up a bill of $250. Plus, the seasonal sticker gives you a chance to go to every beach, except Old Silver resident side. Every beach, even if, some of the non-resident beaches. The resident beaches, I should say, need to open up when we have a seasonal person, because they get the red carpet treatment, if you will.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
And as Mr. Bogardo said, I was at the meeting, and it was a very thoughtful discussion. We spent a lot of time on it. The 2-week sticker and the 3-week sticker were disproportionately low. That's the biggest change. And the resident sticker only went up $5. So I had one email from one resident who was unhappy with the increase, but I think at only $5 for the resident sticker, I don't think that's too much to ask after 13 or almost 14 years. So.
As Doug mentioned, the weeklies, down Cape, they have a set fee for 1 week, and they simply double it for 2 and triple it for 3. We decided the beach committee decided not to go that route, but it still have a stepped process. So you'll see between weeks, it's only a $50 increase, which is not the doubling prospect, but it's certainly not the $10 difference for an extra 7 days. So the beach committee felt it was in line.
I am concerned about the propensity to share that you described. And I sort of feel that with the seasonal sticker being only $30 more, that's the one that's going to be shared. If the seasonal sticker, if that's the one that's getting shared, I guess I wouldn't mind it being shared as much if it were a costlier sticker. But as you're saying, it is a very good deal to have the 4-week sticker be $220 and the seasonal, which could be 9 weeks.
9 or even 10, yeah, depends on how
For
many people we
$30
have
more.
at Labor Day, but,
But it was even cheaper
Right.
before.
right.
I wouldn't, I would be open to saying, make that a $300 sticker.
This is actually in line because, let's see. Places on Wellfleet are getting $300 for seasonal. Several 250s. Dennis gets a $300 as well. But if you're a resident looking for a seasonal because your son or daughter is coming to live with you, they get you, cut that in half. There's a lot of kinds of intricate ways in which they massage the fee schedule in other towns. I found it very enlightening to be able to discover what they're up to.
And one thing to be clear is that these are proposals from the departments. It is up to us to either agree to them, amend them, have them stay as the present fee. It isn't something that so we need to vote tonight, but we can also consider any changes we might want to make.
I would just say that I think that they seem well-researched and seems like they're on par with other towns. I agree that the one place where maybe it would be worth increasing it would be the seasonal sticker. It does seem like that's a significant bargain to be able to spend. I mean, it could be 5, but it could be 9, right? So.
Well, yeah, because after 4 weeks, it's a fixed
Right,
fee for
it's
the
a
other
fixed
6.
fee, right.
So, yeah, it becomes the best bargain on the table.
Mr. Brown?
Do we have a program for reducing that seasonal cost, as you mentioned?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, you just mentioned another town was Dennis that cuts that seasonal sticker in half if it's a resident.
If it's a resident requesting a seasonal sticker,
Right.
yes, we don't have that, no.
We
But
might,
as I said, it was very enlightening for me to see what other towns do.
right.
For example, some towns, if they have a town employee that doesn't live in town, they give them a one sticker, resident sticker type for their fee. In other words, if you lived in Mashpee but worked in Falmouth, you could get a regular beach sticker for whatever the straight fee is, but only one. I thought that was pretty unique because it was kind of a special treat for a town employee, you know, so. But there are lots of other things that I found intriguing. But the beach committee chose not to present all lot change just yet. We thought it was time to do just the nuts and bolts.
And they also did not raise the fee for the swimming program,
No, not at all.
which is very good.
That's been extremely successful, and the numbers grow every season.
Right.
We're up to 300 plus.
So what I would,
swim programs.
what I would say that we could do is we can make an amendment to the fees if we wanted to as a suggestion, and then on the 21st is when we'd actually approve the entire fee schedule. That if we felt that we wanted to amend this to $300 for the seasonal, that could be an option we could do. Does not mean we have then accepted that fee, but it's just saying that's the direction we're heading.
And what about adding a policy for reduced rate, as Ms. Morgado mentioned that they do in Dennis, if a resident wanted to buy a seasonal for a family member, how would that be implemented? Would that be the beach committee to initiate that?
I don't think so. I think that whole policy is a policy change and then a fee attached to that. So I'm not sure what the guidelines are on that. I'm still learning.
Okay. Me too.
I think that policy or the policy of a town employee would be something that would come from us with the communication with the beach department, but would not be part of our hearing notice and schedule of fees.
Okay.
Are we ready to move on?
Yes.
Next
you.
is
Thank
the assessor's office. And to review what they've proposed is currently there's a $1 fee for copies of property record card, $1 fee for copies of a map, $1 fee for copies of computer printout, no charge for copies of customer personal data, and the suggestion is to delete all of those charges. And the present fee for a certified abutters list is $15, which is being suggested move to $20. Anyone have anything they want to comment on the assessor's proposed changes? Next is the Fire and Rescue Department, and this has to do with the ambulance billing, the current rate for the BLS base rate. I'm sure actually you have a slide on this. It'll probably be easier to have you make your presentation than me, just to read numbers that may not make sense to people.
I apologize for the heavy IT presence in the room, but I'm experimenting with a new sort of presentation format. Oh, wow.
Boy, what good timing.
Just like that. I'm experimenting with a new presentation process, and the presentation is the easy part. I'm having a panic attack over all the IT stuff working, so Angela and Valerie have been not lightweight, have been lightweights with moving forward, so Angela's just going to log me in here. I do have a little bit of a presentation. It's not, the IT presence isn't an indication of how overwhelming the presentation is.
It's giving me grief. Give me 1 second. You can keep talking if you want. Probably not.
How about them Red Sox? Yeah.
I think you might need to check your password with me. Want to try? That's how IT works, right? Once you sit down, and that's what happens. Okay.
So I just want to, again, I just want to give a little bit of background as to how I got to the number that I got to. I know when you look at it on paper and you look at it on the screen, it looks like it presents a little bit of sticker shock, and I hope to give some context to that. And also a little bit about, start remote presentation. Clicker.
Use this clicker.
We there?
It's going to load right now. Yep.
And I'm doing it on my phone, so I'm not following the Bruin score while I'm doing this. So, and just to give a little context to the numbers, how I got to the math, and a little bit of context of what we're up against as far as call volume and so forth, and a little bit of history to that, and hopefully put it all together in the end. Actually, Rick Martin, who was the president of Comstar, is actually here. Comstar is the billing company that provided me with all this data, and Comstar is the company that we use for our ambulance billing. So he's here in case there's really any technical questions that should come up. So when I first went upstairs as the acting fire chief, I had a lot of meet and greets with the people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis. And I had a conversation with actually a representative from Comstar, and just a meet and greet. We were sort of talking about Falmouth ambulance billing rates and how Falmouth ambulance billing rates were really comparatively low to our neighbors in the rest of the Commonwealth. So I asked him to present me with some data. And I just want to be sure, for full disclosure, I reached out to the Comstar people for this information. They didn't come to me. So this isn't sort of hey, there's a new fire chief down the Cape, let's put the arm on him and Comstar can make a little bit more money. So they provided this data to me at my request. So really what we're looking at is trying to balance a sustainable revenue stream with the future of where sort of my organization really needs to be. So what we did is compare Falmouth's ambulance billing rates to 7 comparable Cape Cod EMS agencies. And by a significant amount, Falmouth is the lowest. And I chose these people I chose this comparison for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, Comstar readily had the data, which was very helpful. Falmouth being the largest municipal fire department on Cape Cod, we sort of share a lot of the demographic that some of these comparative departments share. We have some really, really financially challenged people and some really, really wealthy people. Falmouth really sort of runs that spectrum. And I thought that was really a pretty good place to make a fair comparison to see where we stand. And just to ask real quick, I'd ask you to just take a look at what that 7-town, what the average of that is. So what, in addition to looking at how we compare with some other municipalities, some other Cape Cod fire departments, Comstar was able, Mr. Martin was able to provide me with some data as to how we compare with some of their clients statewide. And if you kind of scroll down the list here, you can see that Falmouth really low comparatively. So what we sort of talked about was, again, where's the balance? So this proposal obviously is to increase Falmouth's ambulance billing rate, and I got a little bit of info about changing the formula with which we do that. This, if you take nothing away from this, increasing Falmouth's ambulance billing rate has absolutely zero effect on Medicare and Medicaid patients in Falmouth. Zero impact. That's about 73% of what Falmouth bills. 73% of our patients that we transport in the ambulance are Medicare and Medicaid. In the past, Falmouth has operated on what's called a Medicare Plus model, which is you take the Medicare reimbursement rate and you add 10% or 25% or 50%. And then having my conversations with the people in the industry, There's some challenges with that, and that's part of what this proposal wants to step away from. And it's enumerated up here. Medicare pays well below the cost of what an ambulance transport actually costs, and have done since 2002. Not really a relevant basis for setting the rates anymore. The Medicare reimbursement rates don't nearly track with the costs associated with providing EMS. And in fact, several years Medicare rates go down. If your ambulance billing rate is tied to the Medicare rate and the Medicare rate goes down, the town suffers because of that. So a lot of municipalities are really moving away from the Medicare Plus model and to just simply set the rates to cover the cost of doing business and to offset the cost of what it costs the municipality to provide the service versus what Medicare will reimburse. Medicare and Medicaid pays on a set fee, and I know a lot of people are concerned. It's the difference between what Medicare pays and what the ambulance provider charges are not billable to the Medicare patient. We don't bill for that. We can't go over that after them for the difference. We send Medicare a bill for $4,000. They pay us $500 or whatever it is, and that's it. That's the end of it. Medicare patients' co-pays are not based on what the ambulance service charged. The Medicare patient's co-pay is based on whatever the Medicare base rate is. Obviously, Medicaid patients have no, there is no co-pay associated. Again, this increase, if approved, has zero impact on the tax rate in Falmouth, zero impact on the tax dollars. The burden, I guess if you want to call it, is spread out amongst the rest of the population, which in Falmouth represents about 27% that have private insurance. I've asked you to keep in mind that people with private insurance, myself, people that are not Medicare and Medicaid, are already absorbing this cost across the board. An example I'd like to use, if the Sandwich Board of Selectmen right now, my friend Bill Carrico, who's the fire chief in Sandwich, is, as we speak, standing in front of the Sandwich Board of Selectmen saying, hey, look, we're drowning in calls, I need 8 more guys, I want to double the ambulance rates in Sandwich. And the Sandwich Board of Selectmen bangs the gavel and says, Bill, Chief, that's a great idea. Tomorrow morning, we're going to double our ambulance rates. People in Falmouth with private insurance are going to absorb a piece of that. So it's not a town to town, it's not covered by, it's not boundary to boundary. That cost is absorbed by everybody with private insurance. If we go back to that long list that Falmouth was at the bottom of it, that guy that's at the top, that's got the solid gold ambulances and 8 guys on every call, Falmouth, the people with private insurance from Portland, Maine to Portland, Oregon are already picking up a piece of that. So it has no direct impact on the taxpayers in Falmouth. I know a big concern in the past has been uninsured. Last year in Falmouth, about 0.06% were what we billed to uninsured people. So, this is the form. And like I said, I appreciate the fact that you look at it and it presents a little bit of sticker shock. But I ask, so my proposal, those numbers that I submitted are simply the average of what those comparative communities on Cape Cod are charging. I simply wanted to come up with something I felt was a reasonable compromise, not the highest, not the lowest, but a reasonable compromise that sort of would be palatable to get Falmouth to be able to generate some additional revenue. And I feel that this plan is really economically sustainable. There's also a little bit of info moving on about fire alarm box fees. So again, I appreciate the fact that you look at that and it looks like a huge jump. To me, it's simply coming to the average of what our neighbors are already charging. And at the end of the day, this proposal generates about $600,000 in increased revenue a year just in ambulance billing fees. That's every year.
We have 2 questions. I guess on that figure right there,
I want to go back?
that $600,000 only comes from the 27% of the
Correct.
people who are paying.
Zero impact on Medicare and Medicaid, which is the overwhelming majority of no impact. Correct. That's borne by that 27% of private insurance.
Okay, Ms. Moran, you had a question?
Sure. So on the private insurance, or, people that aren't Medicaid covered, so, okay, Megan needs an ambulance. What's going to happen to her cost that's not covered by insurance? First of all, if her insurance company covers say 1,000, she's going to get billed for the 3,000 out of the 4,000 total cost, correct?
So, and that's why the president of the company is here, but you're talking about potentially impacting a deductible, I would imagine. So the deductible, my understanding is that really the deductible is a relationship of whatever insurance plan you happen to have. So that's possible that somebody with a high deductible insurance plan may feel a bit more of that impact. That could potentially happen right now. So this really, I'm not, am I making sense?
Well, let me ask a follow-up then
Sure.
before he comes to the podium and introduces himself. Along the same vein, if, say it's the town for a run that's covered by Medicaid is losing $3,500. The way, some of that's got to be office costs, some operational costs, I wonder whether some of that, the extra cost that it's not just the cost of the run to get Megan, it's the cost of operating the whole system at a loss, which is apparently the way it's done now. So I'm also wondering if that's going to be billed to Megan when she needs it.
Can you answer that?
I'm picking you because you're younger.
You're going to have to stand. So this is Rick Martin, who's the president of Comstar, which is the company that we use.
Good evening. For the person with private insurance, you have co-pays and deductibles. Copay is typically fixed based on the plan. The deductible also is fixed. In the case of the deductible, that's a contractual commitment between the subscriber and the patient. Whether it's this bill or some other bill, it's going to go to that commitment. So increasing your fees, if that's the only bill that patient incurs, it's going to allow them to satisfy that deductible faster. But it's not uncommon that if someone's using the emergency ambulance, there's a hospital admittance, and that overall stay is going to probably exceed their deductible anyway. So it's a matter of that deductible is going to get paid probably one way or the other, whether it's through the ambulance bill or some other health care bill during the course of the year.
It just seems that the plan to increase dollars, which I appreciate the need for very much, really is going to be on the backs of the 23% for a service that's being used really, I think I've heard you speak before about the bulk of the calls being the Medicaid-related transport or really much less emergency-related. So that's something I'm just grappling with.
Well, I certainly wouldn't characterize it. It's not non-emergency related. They're all emergency calls. Mm-hmm. So we're not talking about sort of a scheduled interfacility transfer. It's just that you're talking about the people that are on Medicare and Medicaid tend to generate more emergency calls.
That's better put, thank you.
And there's no way of recouping that money.
Well, interestingly enough, though, thanks. Don't go away. So interestingly enough, in addition to this, there is a new, this is in its second year, it's an infancy plan where the Commonwealth is reimbursing municipalities for some of the losses that they incur through Medicare and Medicaid. Last year for us, that was about $55,000. I throw this data point in that this is not really part of the fee increase, but I throw this data point out there just so that everybody's aware. So, the ambulance generated $1.7 million in revenue last year. This is an additional $55,000 on top of that. We're always looking for ways to try to find some sort of positive revenue stream so that we can continue to meet the demands that's placed upon us. Again, it was $55,000 last year. I think this year it's trending down a little bit, but that's only a 2-year-old plan. So we do get a little bit of relief from the state. But again, it's not related to this. I just throw it out there so we're always being sort of diligent. I'm going to transition to a little bit to the fire alarm box fees. Do you have any other?
I have 2 other questions. Mr. Patterson, or 3
Yeah,
questions?
in coming up with your average ambulance fee, I noticed it looked to me like there's 6 out of those 7 particular were fire districts and not part of municipalities. Those districts kind of have some additional overhead that they have to cover. I'd rather see us take a look at all of the municipalities, quite honestly, and compare our rates to those, rather than select out, 6 out of the 7 that are fire districts that have their own taxing authority, essentially.
And that's a valid point. I think if you go back to the three-part slide, those are all municipalities. Really, Cape Cod, maybe you guys can tell me that. I don't think there are really too many other district fire departments out there other than the town of Barnstable, which is 5 separate fire districts. I think it's safe that the majority of those comparisons are in fact municipalities. I don't know that for sure. As opposed to a district where I understand that where districts set their own tax rate.
Well, most of those districts fall within the Barnstable municipality. And so when I looked at that list, it looked to me like 6 out of the 7 were actually part of the Barnstable, whatever it is, city, I guess it is. So that's what made me stop and think, well, wait a minute, they're basically setting their rates based on this local district basis and their particular expenses. I just want to make sure that we're all going to pay those costs through our insurance premiums. We know that, unless you're on Medicare and then it's diluted down a little bit more. But I just would like to make sure that we're being equitable about this and we're not selecting out particular fire districts, if you will, which may have higher costs to begin with because they have to carry overheads that maybe the town would be covering otherwise. I just would like to see a more representative sample used for coming up with that average.
We do the long list of, was it 170 communities?
Correct.
Could we look what the median of that list is?
Yeah.
We were 107 out of 110.
So, right, so this...
Right.
This is a great tool. Thanks, Andrew, it's awesome, yeah.
So only one of those would be Barnstable, for example.
Right.
Well, I mean, I think these would not be, this is, based on the fact that the ratio of municipal fire departments versus district fire departments, you're far more likely that this is way more municipalities than districts. There aren't that many districts in Massachusetts.
So you look at number 55, which would be the median, because you said they're 110?
Correct. So this comparison is based on the BLS base rate, because they obviously vary a little bit, but that's the best way to get a comparison. I think when I average it out, if it's approved, it puts Falmouth just above the upper, just above the 50%.
So if we look at the number 55,
Yeah.
the figure there is 1205, we have 1,300 being recommended by the chief. Then a 1950 up there, and the chief is recommending 1871. And then 3,010 up there, and the chief is recommending 2676. So the recommendations are fairly close in line to what the median of all the municipalities is.
Thank you.
And I sort of initially, I think I was concerned along the same lines that you're discussing, but in hearing what we all know, but it's just helpful to hear it sometimes. I mean, if you're taking a trip to the emergency room, if you're there for 15 minutes, your bill is going to be much larger than that ride to get there. I mean, we all know that, unfortunately, the healthcare costs are really large. So I think that, to me, that's somewhat compelling, that's going to either satisfy the deductible, and it's probably just going to be a very small portion of what your bigger bill is going to be, even if you're not at the hospital for very long, so.
Argument.
One more. You mentioned scheduled ambulance trips. What are those rates?
Well, I didn't put it on here, it's called specialty care transport. We don't do specialty care transport, so we don't bill for that. It's a lot more.
It's a private.
It's an hospital to hospital generally. We don't do that, so I took that data out. We don't bill that.
All right, thanks.
Mr. Brown?
Could you tell me anything about how insurance companies allow for these payments? Is there like a typical, say, $1,200 or so allowance? Do they go with an allowance, or how are they paid?
For emergency transports, there's no requirement to be in-network or participating provider with the private insurances. So they're obligated to pay the fees that are charged by the services. They don't, in general, they're not contractually, you're not bound to accept anything less than your full rates.
Okay, thank you.
And so generally what we're seeing, the rates that, even the averages, we're seeing that these are getting paid in full, less co-pays and deductibles.
Okay, thanks.
I must admit, my first reaction was quite a bit of sticker shock, thinking we're doubling and almost tripling some of these amounts. But then I thought, well, there isn't a customer who's going to say, wait a minute, last year it only cost me this much, because fortunately it's not a typical repeat customer that is paying these fees. It's unfortunately.
Hopefully not.
Right.
So the second component, I'm sorry, should I continue? The second
Yeah,
component that,
Yep.
Rick Martin. This is for you, Rick. I don't know if it pertains or not, but,
Of course, it has to be directed to me, as you know.
Mark Finneran, Precinct 6. There's 351 towns in Massachusetts. I wondered why the list was so short.
only 112 or something. I actually can answer that. This data was provided to me by ComStar, so those are clients that ComStar represents.
Okay.
So in addition, part of this initial, sorry, is that, we good?
Yep.
In addition, part of this fee increase is to currently start charging for the town, the fire department to start charging for fire alarm systems that we currently monitor for free. Long-standing municipal fire alarm system in Falmouth, which is great, keeps everybody's insurance rates low. However, it really, as you'll see when I move on a little bit about call volume and so forth, it really is not as economically sustainable for us to provide this service for free anymore. So part of that, my recommendation is for $200 per year to monitor the fire alarm systems. In Falmouth, that represents 333 systems. That's not counting municipal buildings. So that translates into about $66,000 a year. Lots of other communities in the Commonwealth that have municipal fire alarm systems do in fact do in fact pay for that monitoring. And so Falmouth's $200 request really puts us at the bottom of the municipalities that do in fact charge that fee. How do we balance it all out? So here we go. So I just want to talk to you briefly about how I came to that number, a little bit of subliminal where I think maybe we can be looking toward the future, and really just a quick update about where the fire department is right now. My goal as the fire chief really is, at the end of this, to be able to operate with a reasonable staffing model to meet the needs of a typical day. I'm not talking about having enough people on duty for the simultaneous tornado, hurricane, blizzard, tsunami, and 747 crash. I'm not under any circumstances am I talking about zero risk. There's never going to be zero risk. I'm talking about the ability to just have nobody joins the fire service and doesn't think there isn't going to be any risk. So, but I'm talking about a reasonable staffing model for a typical day. And just a quick timeline. Our current 10-person minimum that we operate under with right now, to this very day, was implemented, again, you can read it, under Chief Jim Rogers, 1978. We did 1,877 calls, fire and EMS, in 1978. Between 1978 and 2015, we did 5,145 more calls than we did in 1978 with the exact same staffing. Exact same. And I'd ask you to keep in mind that the medical component, the knowledge, the medical acuity, the expertise that's needed by my people that are handling the medical calls every day is vastly different than it was in 1978. It's almost a vastly different job than it was in 1978. Just a quick slide about where our call volume has been. As you can see, between 2000 and 2010, you do the average, we averaged about 16 and a half calls a day. And that number has been creeping up exponentially, and in my estimation is not going to stop. 16 calls a day in 2011, 17, 18, 19.1 calls. 2015, last year, we did 6,966 calls with the exact same 10 people that we had in 1978.
I'm going to have to stop you right here because unfortunately our agenda is fee hearing. And if someone wanted to be here in the town and talk about additional services, different additional calls and different additional firemen, they'd have no idea that's what we were going to talk about tonight. And so I don't want to get too far into that conversation because I think that's where you're heading.
I understand. Actually, this really is I'm almost there. This is almost at the end and the math adds up, but I just wanted to be able to give you a little bit of context of where I think we could be going with this.
Okay.
Understood. Again, I go back to the study in 1990, some things that it called for about staffing. Clearly, the one-man fire trucks are at the top of the list. Controlled callbacks. These 1990 goals hold true absolutely today. Same thing. One-person fire truck, one-person response, one-person station is neither safe nor effective and places the town in a very exposed position. This is from 1990. It has not changed to this day. It has not changed. So when you see my budget request for next year, that's what you're going to see. Looking for $850,000 for 10 firefighter paramedics. 8 new positions, 2 unfunded that have been approved in the 2007 town meeting. I just wanted to give you a little bit of context. When you see that number, that's what's driving it. What do we get out of that? Allows us to start the day with 15 firefighters, which is recommended in that same 1990 study. 1990, an exhaustive study of the fire department recommended starting the day with 15 people. That was at 3,400 calls. We're at 7,000 calls now with the exact same staffing. Start the day with 15, 17 people assigned. Obviously, that covers vacation and sick leave and so forth. Effectively doubles coverage in 50% of the town. You draw a geographical line down the center of Falmouth. There's 4 fire stations on the left side of the line and 1 fire station on the right. And the slide's cut off a little bit on the bottom. The 15-man minimum puts an officer and 3 firefighters in the East Falmouth Fire Station. Currently, 10-person minimum start of the shift. There's 8 firefighters on the left side of the line and 2 firefighters on the right. As soon as that ambulance leaves the East Falmouth Fire Station, which it does over 2,000 times a year, we're effectively abandoning 50% of the town. We try to cover that with recall, on overtime, having less and less and less and less success with doing that. Vast majority of the times in the summertime, that requires us to take the fire engine that's in West Falmouth and move it to East Falmouth. That's still only 1 person out there that's covering 50% of the town. Again, impacts. We're almost there. Places the 4th ambulance in service 24/7, 365. Significant improvement in firefighter safety and initial patient care. Significant reduction in response times in the eastern half of the town that we effectively, I hate to use the word abandon, but I understand that those fire stations were laid out because of the village model. We just can't continue to operate like this anymore. Eliminates really inefficient overtime expenditures. I wish I could tell you that the overtime budget is going to decrease. I don't know how many times the bat phone's going to ring next year. I don't know how many blizzards there are going to be. I can tell you certainty that the overtime dollars that we expend, the value in that overtime will be increased exponentially, absolutely exponentially. To have a firefighter that's captured for a 10-hour day shift or a 14-hour night shift as opposed to constant trying to recall every minute of every day. And of course, it will effectively eliminate the 1-person fire engines. And again, to add it all up, Medicare reimbursement of about $55,000, the master box fee at $66,000 and about $600,000 a year, and ambulance revenue, it adds up to about $721,000 a year.
And again, I'll have to remind the board, our discussion is just about the fees. And I know the chief has promised all these other things going to happen, but that is not what we're discussing, and not even completely relevant in our discussion of the fees, because the fees would come to the town general fund, and then it would be up to us to make the decision on the other one.
I fully understand that it's not my position to tell you. I just feel that it's incumbent upon me as the fire chief to get the education out there. I fully understand my place in the pecking order, so I appreciate your time.
Ms. Connolly?
Hi, I have a question about the, through the chair. I have a question about the fire alarm boxes. Am I saying the right thing? The fee, so right now there's no fee?
Correct.
And you're proposing a fee of 200 or 300?
200.
200.
Per year.
Okay, and that's any place with a firebox, so like a supervised sober house that's not run by a nonprofit would have that fee, a restaurant would have that fee. Will there be any gradients in the charge for nonprofits or community-minded entities?
That's a really good question.
Thank you.
And that would come back to us for
Sure.
that decision and policy on that.
Just to give a little context, those are properties that have to be monitored anyway. So they're going to have to pay, and the 200, it might, to have a private company in Atlas or an intercity, it's between $400 and $600 a year. So it really still would be a bargain for them, but that's clearly, it's a very good question. That's a policy decision that you folks would have to make.
Any other comments on the Fire and Rescue Department fees?
No, I would just say I think it's helpful, to see that comparison, so I know that's a lot of data to put together, so thank you. I don't think when you look at those numbers, I know I wouldn't have any sense of where we fell in the larger scheme of things, so that's helpful to see that.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
What I'd like to do now is table the rest of the fee hearing.
Yeah.
We have a liquor license hearing, which I'd like to move to. Hopefully, we can move through that fairly quickly, and then have the joint meeting with the Finance Committee before we come back to the other fees.
Great.
So the next item is a application for a transfer of all alcoholic package store license to DTJ Enterprises, Inc., doing business as the West Falmouth Market. I believe there's a...
I don't know if you need us up here, so.
For the applicant?
Hello.
If you could state your name and...
Danielle Johnson.
Thomas Johnson?
And I guess this is a transfer from the current owners to you as to being the new licensees under the all alcohol package store?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions from the board on this issue?
Just what experience do you have in operating this, a business like this?
Growing up, my godfather owned a market very similar to that store, and I worked there for 20-plus years doing every job that was involved in running a market.
Including
From
alcohol?
tending bar, to catering, to cooking, to prep cooking, to trash, to plowing snow, to fixing the air conditioning, anything that needed to be done, he did it.
But specifically to the alcohol sales and controlling.
Right, he sold alcohol, I was also a bartender and did catering events, handling and managing the alcohol for all of those events. And I did the same thing at Concord Country Club as well as the Shada Country Club.
And I've worked in a number of restaurants doing bartending and waitressing.
And are you tips certified?
We're scheduled to be tip certified this week.
And I passed the Serve Safe alcohol.
There was one mention in our packet concerning the tables that are out front of the space, and they don't appear in any of the documents in the application for that. I know they've been there for a while, but there was some concern, and felt it was appropriate time to just confirm or ask about them.
Yeah, we had discussions about those earlier.
We had spoken to Ollie. She had brought up, I don't know her last name, I'm sorry, I only know her as Ollie. And she had mentioned the tables outside lacking a common Vic license. We had spoken to the health inspector, and he said that tables outside are not counted towards that license. If it's a license that we're required to get, we're certainly willing to apply for it. I believe Jeff Parrish is here, who's the current owner of the store, and it has not previously been an issue.
Any other questions?
I move approval.
Second?
A motion and a second to approve the transfer of an all alcoholic package store license. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Actually, I guess this is a hearing. I'm going to have to start over again.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Excuse me.
Is
I move that
anyone-
we could- oh, go ahead.
Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak in favor of this application of the transfer? Anyone like to speak against it? Now, Mr. Patterson, will you close the hearing, please?
I move to close the hearing.
Second.
All those in favor of closing the hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, the ayes have it. Now,
Now I move approval of this transfer of license.
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, the ayes have it. Congratulations and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
We'd now like to invite the Finance Committee to join us for our joint meeting. We'll return back to the public hearing on the fees after our business with the Finance Committee. So if you, Finance Committee who's in the audience, if you come and join the side tables.
Good, how you doing?
flexible space for put chairs around.
Peter's trying not to sit. He's trying to sit in the audience.
Yeah, that's fine.
Only those who have a microphone can speak. Take mine.
Sharing is
I can tell you're going to want to talk.
I've been doing this.
Yeah.
You want to hand those out?
I'll do that now?
Yep. I'd like to welcome the Finance Committee and thank them for joining us. Just for official, if you want to call your meeting to order, so.
Call the Finance Committee meeting to order.
Thank you. We'll just give you a little bit of background as to the purpose of this meeting. Has evolved over the past 2 or 3 weeks. We are really hoping that we could come and ask you, the Finance Committee, to approve a recommendation of some funds to be able to move forward in this plan. I don't think that we are at the place where that really makes a lot of sense, so what we wanted to do is check with you about the timetable that has been proposed by our Finance Director for this November town meeting, and then move forward in the April town meeting. That there are still some funds available so that we could present at this November town meeting with approval of the town moderator a very rough conceptual plan that we have for the senior center at Gus Canty, as was voted by this board a few weeks ago. Then refine that plan, come back with a more detailed, both plan of the building and more detailed financial picture at the April town meeting, at which point we would then ask for the Finance Committee and the town meeting support for the funds to be able to design, construct the building, which of course would have to then go to the town for voting to support it. And so that's just sort of laying out what the current thinking that, and this is, I think, news to my board also as to what's being suggested. So to open up discussion as to where we could head with that.
We have some people here who would like to make some comments about the design of the senior center, and so can you tell me at what point that might be appropriate?
Not tonight. This is a discussion about the timetable of finances. There certainly will be way more discussion about the design of it. If there's concerns about the location, that's not really what we're here tonight. It's really looking at next Monday's town meeting and the 2 articles that are on that town meeting warrant.
One very short statement of the podium.
Sure.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Debbie Carlisle. I'm a senior citizen in Falmouth, and there are a lot of people here tonight who are in a group. We are active senior citizens, and we play pickleball. There's about 150 of us. 2 years ago, there were 25 of us, so that's like a 500% increase in 2 years, and it's growing like that in leaps and bounds. And we are here to ask you to please consider planning a gymnasium or a gymnasium-type room in the senior center facility. It could be a multi-purpose room. You could have folding partitions to fold it off into smaller spaces. But we need a place to play indoors, and we are active, and we're going to stay active, and we are growing, and we have outgrown our allotted time at Gus Canty. And so when you design the senior center, we are asking that you consider putting a gymnasium in.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Can anybody else speak?
You'd asked for, I granted that you could make a brief statement.
Okay.
And that's what you've done.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you. Okay. So discussion among the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen on this proposed timeline or related topics?
I'm wondering if we should announce to everybody in the room knows what we're looking at, since we don't have it on the overhead.
Sure.
I do have an overhead, but I'm reluctant to put it up with our colleagues in the Finance Committee who directing the fire line, so.
We can move.
Nick's used to being in the spotlight.
I'll read it out loud.
Okay.
But it does give visibility to people at home who are viewing it on TV, so I think there's a benefit to actually projecting it.
Okay. Happy to do so. Well, Mr. Susso's getting it on the projector. I'll read
Maybe we can
it.
just pull that.
That from November to March, we would work on finalizing the concept plan for the new senior center, the Gus Canty Community Center site. The final concept plan we brought to town meeting in April, and then voters in May, so they can all see how the building will be placed, its orientation on the site, and important details. The consulting architect we're currently working with will provide a final revised best estimate for construction cost. The town meeting members will ask to appropriate design and construction funds at April town meeting. Then we'll have a debt exclusion on the May 17, 2017 town ballot. In addition, the Board of Selectmen would need to work with the school committee on working out the timing and the potential move of the varsity football field to the high school site. The moving of this football field, that timing is not essential to the moving forward with the Gus Canty Center site for the senior center, but certainly would make it more attractive and allow for easier parking at that point. Yeah.
Doug, you're not asking for any funding at this town meeting, is that correct?
In discussion with the finance director, only thing funding you could ask at this time without having to go to the ballot would be a piece of the
Right.
design, and to add that as another small piece makes no sense. No architect is going to say, sure, I'll sign on, when only 50% of the design funding is available, and so it really made no sense to ask for funding. I like the idea of asking for a little funding, just so it could be a referendum of the town meeting members to make sure they're in support of this, but there was no logical way of really doing that based on what the finance director
Okay,
suggested.
thank you. I just wanted to get that out on the table before we had the presentation.
What I'm hoping to ask the town meeting moderator is for a permission to, with the indefinite postponement recommendation that I think would come from the finance committee, to at least make a report on the status of where we are, and to show about, less than 5 minutes, a slide of where our current thinking is with the schematics of the building at Gus Canty.
Is the thought that the funds that were already approved by town meeting, the 300,000, the majority of that has not been used?
I believe we still have about 289,000.
Right, so is the thought that that would be the seed money, if you will, for going forward with the architects?
We still have to check for actual procurement laws that allow us how far can we go with the current consulting architect we're using. There is no expectation that he will be our ultimate architect. I mean, that would have to go back to a completely different bid. But we can move forward as far as we can to be able to come back to town meeting in April with detailed, specific idea of what we're thinking of. Mr. Hargraves.
Am I okay? Am I okay just speaking from here?
Oh,
Well, maybe we can, let the cord go any further, Peter? I don't know if it's, it'll come a little late.
Oh, perfect.
It'll pick you up from
Okay,
there.
I'm sure they'll pick me up. Oh, no,
Okay.
that's probably too close. So I really like the direction that this is going, because it's talking about further study about the best placement before we make a deep dive into the design. But I still have a concern about the siting. In order for you to understand it, I would ask you for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes to just build on the logic that led me to where I am, which, just to tell you where I'm going, I think we need a greater kind of conceptual and strategic plan for the use of the Gus Canty site and the resulting consequences of that choice, so that people in the town can see all of the associated costs. And I won't say fallout, I mean, all the stuff sounds good, but this is where it'd be helpful to hear specific comments that I have in support of this point of view, and I'll try to be brief.
And that's the
Because-
whole idea, is that we will have from now until April to actually develop all that and hear all those
And
comments.
so the concern I have stems around the point number 1, where it says it'll be a final concept for the senior center at the Gus Canty Community Center. And so if you go back to the study that was done, actually Gus Canty was at the bottom of the list in terms of rank and having the most pass scores and the most fail scores. And actually, there were only 2 sites, the high school and the school administration site, where there were no reasons not to pursue. And the Gus Canty site, which was the next...
Okay, I am going to interrupt you. We are not going to be discussing the site location anymore.
Okay.
We had the discussion 3 weeks ago. It was very clear we're having the discussion. We didn't specifically invite the Finance Committee, but the town was all aware that we were having that discussion.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go back, and that's not what we're here to discuss
Okay.
tonight.
And so, actually, that's about all I had to say about that, because we chose a site that wasn't recommended by our study. And when I was at that selectmen's meeting, in the 2 hours that we spent discussing it, 110 minutes were spent talking about hockey and lacrosse and maybe ways to work around the flood zone, putting in a community pool, moving the football field, and possibly even remodeling the rec center for the seniors and building a new rec center and renovating Gus Canty. So it sounded like there were a lot of different visions for the use of the site that would have associated costs. And, you know, very concerning, considering that a $900,000 field relocation put us off from considering further the first choice that we had at the high school, not the one that we rejected last week, but the very first choice where we had to relocate at a much higher cost. And so I heard for 10 minutes, we talked about the senior center. For 110 minutes, we talked about all these other issues that are, you know, relevant to recreation. And that's to my point that I think we do need to take a more strategic look at how would we use the Gus Canty site overall for municipal recreation and the other things that are associated, like the football field. People are thinking we're going to get that, or a pool. There are a lot of costs associated with it. And if those things weren't also part of the plan, would people still be supporting the Gus Canty Center? Because I saw what happened here. I saw that the select board took advantage of the political support that was available for all these different projects, and only one person was a senior here at 10:30 at night who talked about the senior center. And so I'm not sure if there is anyone who's a customer for this project who's strongly supporting it as much as all the others who spoke the last time. And the last thing I'd like to say is I disagree with this last item here that says that the high school field is not associated at all with this, because in this latest document that was sent out today regarding the preliminary work that was done, it says the football field needs relocation before the adequate roads can be put in to the site, even if we locate the building in between the police station and the Gus Canty Center. I'm not against the senior center. I'm not against Gus Canty. What I am for is an understanding with our eyes wide open about the financial project that we're signing up for overall, because people left that meeting with great expectations about many other projects that have nothing to do with the senior center. So that's my point.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, Nick Lowell, member of the Finance Committee. I think the timeline is basically pretty good. Clearly, we're not ready to move ahead right now, and I hope that by April, we can, have a much more detailed plan. But there are a couple things that I just want to make sure that we get in that plan, and one of them is there's clearly an opportunity for synergy with the rec center. And I know the Recreation Committee has expressed a desire to have the senior center at their site. I would like to know how that meshing of programs, shall we say, is going to work, and to make sure that we really have a plan for that. And if that includes pickleball or whatnot, how would, at least some examples of how some of these programs might work and how the space might be used, because there are opportunities for synergy there. The second thing that I'm particularly interested in is beyond the actual plans, there's been some talk about the operating budget that'll be required for the facility. And I'm not worried about funding, I'm not very much worried about funding the actual construction project. From my perspective, that's going to be a Proposition 2.5 override, and either the town meeting and the voters are going to approve it or they're not. And once it does get approved, then we have a dedicated revenue stream to pay for the construction. But if we need to hire a handful, 5, 6, 7 new employees, as in some of the plans I've heard, that could really put the hurt on the operating budget for the town. And that's something that we wouldn't have a plan. I don't see, based on what I understand from the operating budget and how tight things have been, that we would have the operating budget to do that. So I would hope that we could understand what the anticipated costs are for operating the facility and figure out how we're going to pay for that. Because, I mean, put it bluntly, there are a lot of positions in town that people would like to have filled, including the senior center. At times we talk about needing additional officers, whether it's police or fire. We talk about different people in DPW, and virtually every department in town has unfilled needs. And would you automatically stack 5 or 6 or 7 people in the senior center as the #1 priority? I'm not sure. So we have very competing, they're competing goals or competing desires for if we're going to hire additional people. And I just want to make sure that we have a good plan for that too.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Finance Committee?
Could I ask for clarification, maybe from Jennifer? I thought we were not going to ask for an override to fund this, that it would be done with some other kind of debt, expiring debt or something like that.
Well, no, it will be funded by a debt exclusion, but it could be...
Jennifer, you want to come up to the mic?
Good evening. No, it will be funded by a debt exclusion, but the town's policy is as debt declines, we incur new debt in order to keep the debt exclusion steady, so we're not, increasing the tax rate or really decreasing the tax rate. So it's all within that debt drop-off window, but it will be a debt exclusion. So we will be appropriating money over 2.5 for this project. But we have a plan that as the debt drops off, we will incur new debt.
So it would likely be able to be done without an increase in the taxes, but we still have to get a 2.5 override.
Whether it's just the senior center or all the other bells and whistles.
This will be only for the construction of the senior center.
Thank you.
And design, I believe.
Design and construction.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, Mary?
Hi, I'm Mary Harris for the Finance Committee. I'd just like to clear up what we're doing here, in that, as I understand it, we're not being asked to determine any amounts of money involved in the fall town meeting. You're merely asking for our opinion on the timeline?
That is correct. Originally, the meeting, when we scheduled it 3 weeks ago, our intention was to talk about what kind of monies we could ask for. And once it became clear that that was not the appropriate direction to go, I felt it was appropriate to still have this meeting, communicate with the Finance Committee directly what our thoughts were, and to get your reaction to the suggested timeline.
Fine, so we have no financial determinations to be made immediately, that will be later. So if it's simply advisory, I think for myself, I think we're very excited about the idea that we can finally move forward on a senior center and have a concrete timeline and perhaps have a great deal of this resolved in time for the April town meeting.
And the other thing I do like about this timeline is it actually doesn't push us back any further than we possibly could. The only hope we might have had is that we might have had a vote at this town meeting to authorize some money to still go to town in May and vote for. So either way, it wasn't going to be until May that we had to ask the town for the borrowing anyway. So we knew that we had to wait for that to happen. Any other comments? Mr. Viera?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim Viera, Chairman of the Council on Aging. I'd like to just make a general statement about the direction of the project, if that's okay with you, based on the information that we received last week. Last week, the Council on Aging met, and Mr. Suso was kind enough to come and show us a conceptual plan of a possibility of what could be happening at the Gus Canty site. And that conceptual plan, and we understand it's a concept at this point in time, showed a freestanding senior center, a dedicated freestanding senior center, located between the police station and the existing rec center. The plan generally shows a building of about 15,000 square feet. As you know, the vision of the Council on Aging wasn't exactly what is shown at Gus Canty. What our vision was for a more serene site out of the congestion of downtown Falmouth, with open space and green space and an area for future expansion. However, at the same time, we recognize the fact that the decision is basically yours to make as to where the site goes. And at this point in time, the Council on Aging would like to move this project forward. And we voted unanimously to endorse the concept that we were presented with by Mr. Suso. And the concept that I mentioned before is a concept of a standalone senior center that's attached by walkways, one or more walkways, to the existing recreation building, which would allow some cross use from the seniors to the rec building and vice versa. We also recognize the fact that a two-lane entry-exit to Dillingham Avenue is a very important part of this project, but it may not happen immediately. That may be dependent upon the field relocation. So even though the construction may go forward, we anticipate that piece of the entry-exit onto Dillingham is part of the project. It just may not happen simultaneously. One of the things that the council did ask for, and I think it may be part of the thinking, is that during the design process that a traffic engineer look at the entry-exit onto 28 and explore safer alternatives to get our people in and out of there. So I just wanted to mention the fact that, the council is on board. We feel that it's time to move this project forward, and we're looking forward to working with you folks to get it done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for your work today.
Mr. Scherer?
Thank you, Dan Scherer. I'm confused. I have heard that the Gus Canty Howard Center needs to be changed. It needs to be redone, changed. But we're only going to build a building for the seniors there, and we're not going to do anything to the Gus Howard County. In our override, I thought this was a complete project to do Gus Canty and a senior center and work together and get that modernized and a senior center. Am I not correct, or
Certainly the focus has been on building the new senior center, looking at what might need to be done at the rec center. Our architect looking at it says it is not a substantial renovation that needs to happen to the senior center. To the teen center, or to the rec center.
If I may, just in the sort of initial, and it's really just initial concept one, there is obviously going to be, or potentially there's an interface, this connection between the senior center and the Gus Canty. A physical connection, some kind of covered, walkway. So certainly, if that ends up being part of that, there'll be some, work that will be done at the Gus Canty, but it's not, this is a project for the senior center, not a full overhaul of the Gus Canty as well.
Well, I think we're going to have duplication and I think we're biting off more than we can chew at that point. Unless we combine these and work them together, I think that the idea of having the senior center there is a very bad one. I think the school administration building would have been a lot better. Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
I was just going to try to clarify that. I think that the initial idea was the adaptive reuse of the recreation center, and that's where the remodeling idea came from. And now this has evolved into a standalone building. So that may be where the confusion came from.
We do have a preliminary slide about what the building's going to look like. I'd rather wait to show that next weekend because we're going to have some fine tuning to that. And so to put it up there now, when we're going to have a little different plan actually at our town meeting, I'd rather not go into that tonight. Okay. Thank you all very much, the Finance Committee, for joining us, and we appreciate the time. And I'm sorry if there's confusion as to what we're asking you to do.
Second. Okay, Finance Committee meeting is adjourned.
Yeah.
I'm going to be in New York.
Oh, yeah. Too nice.
Sorry. Thanks, Megan.
Really good with the technology there.
Okay, we'll return back to take off the table, our fee hearing. Next item is under the Health Department. Under temporary food permit, currently we have $10 a day for 1 to 2 days, $15 a day for 3 to 5 days, and we have no stipulation for 1 to 4 days. The recommendation is to delete the distinctions and just have it be $15 a day for any time between 1 to 4 days, and also to raise the after-hours and weekend inspection fee from $150 to $200. Anything else you want to add to that description?
That is an accurate description of what I've submitted to the Board of Selectmen for approval.
Please introduce yourself.
I'm Dave Kerrigan, the Town of Falmouth Board of Health agent. The reason for the increase from $10 to $15 is to some extent an administrative necessity to clarify the fees, make them more rational for folks who wish to come to town to do business. It's not an attempt necessarily to equate the level of effort and the cost to the town for the process of issuing the permit. That is a discussion for another day and would require policy input from the policymakers in that regard. The $150 after hours and weekend fee is more targeted in its attempt to cover the cost that the town would incur for having an inspector go to an event on a weekend and then earn time and a half overtime for that event service. So that is more in keeping with sort of an attempt to reach parity.
Any questions for Mr. Kerrigan? From the public?
No.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Next is from the Historical Commission, and these are some increases from for the certificate of non-applicability, administrative dash signs going from $10 to $25. Certificate of hardship, currently there's no fee, going up to $75. Certificate of appropriateness, renovations and alterations, going from $25 to $75. Certificate of appropriateness for new construction or additions, going from $25 to $200. And a certificate of appropriateness for demolition, going from $25 to $200. Ms. Goldman?
Hi, Nicole Goldman. I'm the Vice Chair of the Historical Commission, and I apologize, but I'm here as a substitute, so I didn't have any of my materials to bring with me, so I'm relying on memory. As similar to the other groups that you heard tonight, we looked at our fee structure and have, over the course of time, I believe it was only about a year ago that we actually started to charge for our applications at all. So we went from 0 to 25, and except for the signs, and so now we're looking to increase it across the board and to give a little bit more parity with what other municipalities and towns are charging. And so those really are the fees that you see in front of you. The reason for some of the higher charges are some of the more complex matters that we end up looking at. They often involve a lot more work on the part of the staff, actually, putting together the plans for us, preparing helping the applicants to prepare their applications to us so that we can get a more comprehensive look at it. Oftentimes, people come before us with their intents so that we can help sort them out before they even put in an application. So it's really a several, evening process that we go through with some of these larger projects.
Of the going up to 200, how often do you get applications for certificate of appropriateness for either new
For new
construction
developments and
additions
new
or
homes?
demolition?
I'd say
Roughly.
I'm going to say 8 to 9 times a year.
About 50.
No, so it's about maybe one per meeting, but not that often. But now the demolitions, so this is part of the new combined historical commission with historic districts. We didn't used to oversee the demolitions, now we are overseeing those.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Any questions from the public? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the Marine and Environmental Services. First, under moorings, the demand late fee going from $35 to $50. Slips wharfage for 100 foot or larger going from $3.50 a foot to $5 a foot. The main marina and Davis floating dock system, resident going from $154 to $156 a foot, non-resident $177 to $179 a foot. Charter boat section, resident going from $150 to $154 a foot, non-resident $173 to $177 a foot, and Green Pond resident $140 to $142 a foot, and non-resident $161 to $163 a foot.
Hi, I'm Jeff Thomas. I'm the chairman of the Waterways Committee. Mr. Frazier was here, but when his section of the rates changed, he had a conflict he could not miss. So he asked me to fill in for him. So I'll do my best representing what we're trying to do here. Essentially, on the first fee, the mooring, the demand late fee, 2 years ago or last year, we actually did a survey as to the basic minimum mooring fees. We felt that the town of Falmouth wasn't charging enough, so we increased the minimum mooring fee in town from $70 to $100. Mashpee, for example, is $225 or $250 for the same thing. So we only increased it then, but we neglected to increase associated demand late fee, which we wanted to be 50% of the mooring fee. So it's an increase of $15. It kind of went along with that fee increase last year.
On that issue, so when does the late fee kick in, and then does it kick in, if they still haven't paid, would this be a great time to get them off the list because we have such a long waiting list? Say, if you're late twice, forget that you paid $50, you go down to the bottom of the list because we have people who've been waiting since 1998 to get out there more.
Right, yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have that data in front of me, so I'm sorry.
Again, I think that probably would be a policy that we vote on as opposed to the fees, but it's something we've been hearing from.
The next one is, we created a new category of 150 feet or larger boats. There's not a lot of boats that actually come in and use the town in the course of the summer. And the only wharfage we have is the tides wharfage. And what happens, when that happens, it takes a lot of space that other boats could take up, and we're basically losing revenue. So, again, all of these are municipal rates, and they're significantly less than the commercial marina rates. But we felt that the former criteria was greater than 71 feet, so now we're creating a 100 feet or larger, and that went from $3.50 to $5, which we think is still fair for that class of boat. The rest of them are only very small percentages, and what we're trying to do is keep up with inflation. The last time these rates went up was in 2014, so we've carried these rates for 3 years, and inflation in the last 3 years was 3.2%, and most of these are between 1.1 and 2.3%. So we're only asking for a couple dollars more a foot. We don't want to put the burden on the town to pay the inflation rates, where the boaters can certainly do that. And again, we looked at all the other municipal rates on the Cape, and we're certainly in par with that. I don't have that quantitative data with me today, but we can certainly get that to you so you have our analysis.
Any other questions?
No, that's helpful.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the last department is the...
You have a question?
Yeah, Mr. Scherer.
Dan Scherer, and I'm here every year for the same reason, but I have a new idea this year. And I'm on the Waterways Committee. I am not speaking for the Waterways Committee. I have talked to the Waterways Committee about this and been told that fees don't have any, at moorings and so forth, only work with you. But I would like to add a section on here, and that would be a holding fee. We have many, many moorings, and Greg has informed me that I worry about West Falmouth Harbor, where we have 50-plus moorings that aren't being used year after year. He says that's true in all harbors. So I would like to see them send out a form which tells the town what boat is going to be on their mooring with all the information on it. I meant to bring one tonight, and I didn't because I've made one up. And enforce that. And also have this form saying that I will not have a boat on my mooring this summer. And then I would like them charged a holding fee for that mooring. Holding fee is somewhat for the benefit of everybody else. We have inspectors, we have the boats. We should get as much as we can out of the moorings, and we got to get the enjoyment. And we do have 90-something applications on my harbor in West Falmouth. And I would suggest someplace between $200 and $300 for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the other fees that what the committee brought up are much lower than everybody else's fees in town. In the town that have, we have a bargain rate on our marina. Thank you.
Before we move on to the Recreation Department, there was one other group of fees that I had a question about, and that has to do with the wedding and the parking lot fees. That right now, as I understand the way we've interpreted, if someone's having a wedding at one of our beaches, we charge them the wedding fee. But there's also a parking lot fee, and we don't charge them both. I think this is something within our domain, and it came up in the fees, that I actually think would be appropriate to say, if you're going to use our beach for the wedding and park there, you should be charged for use of both. And that can be just something that is our interpretation. It doesn't actually change the fee. It just needs to be told to our administrative office that that's what our intention is.
I think that's a good clarification. Maybe we can put that on our next agenda.
Okay, I'll have the next agenda item to
Yeah.
clarify that. Next item is the Recreation Department. This is field use, one-day field fee for teams not made up 100% Falmouth residents. The current fee is $100 a day. The recommendation is $100 a day up to a $500 maximum per season. I guess, I'm not sure we have someone from the rec department here.
No.
I guess I'd be worried that that would free it up for someone shining up for 30 days and monopolizing the use of the field at the rate of $50 or $500 for those 30 days. And so I guess I'm not exactly sure who this is serving.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think it might be nice to get some input, because maybe there's something we're not aware of that they could shed light on, but I think I agree as it stands, it sounds like it could be Pandora's box.
Abuse.
Mhm.
Well, again, we will be doing our vote on the November 21st, so hopefully we can get some information from
I'll
the
inquire.
Recreation
Be happy to.
Department on that one.
Great.
Okay, any other comments on the fees? All right, then we'll continue our hearing until then the 21st, as per our agenda. We'll now move back to our administrative orders. And the next item is to affirm and sign the treasurer's deed of tax title land. This is for 0 Marshview Road, East Falmouth. This had come to us on a number of different pieces before. We're finally, that the Pat O'Connell was able to sell the small parcel of tax title land as we have authorized her to, and we just need to sign the affirmation of this.
Is that just a matter of passing it down so each of us sign?
With a vote to affirm it and then sign it.
Oh,
Motion to affirm.
second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? The ayes have it. For your signatures, please. Next is to vote to accept the donation from the Falmouth Classic Car Club in the amount of $500 to the Veterans Services Department donation account.
I move acceptance with gratitude.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? The ayes have it. Next is to vote to accept and execute a license agreement between the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution and the town of Falmouth for a bicycle rack installation and maintenance at Huey and Woods Hole, and this is on the corner, I believe, of School Street and Water Street.
I move approval of this agreement.
Second.
Vote to accept and execute the license. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? The ayes have it. And the last item on administrative orders, to authorize the town manager to develop and implement a fuel-efficient vehicle policy.
If I could just comment, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
This would be based upon the model that the state generates, and again, it's pursuant to that same concept about green communities. We have a first draft of that policy, but again, it's fundamentally based upon that same model, and if the board so affirms, that will allow us to wrap that up. I've had Public Works Director Ray Jack review and confirm his concurrence with and comfort with that, and as a courtesy, I am also speaking with school department representatives and awaiting a final word from them.
Ms. Moran?
So, Mr. Sousa, do I understand correctly that this would be the final element for us to achieve the green communities status?
That's my understanding based on the interpretation we've been given, yes.
And I believe it's got everything has to be submitted before November 21st? I'm not sure.
That's my
the
understanding
wording
as
of the
well.
deadline. All right, so this would be the final act before our next meeting.
Correct, there would be no need for the board to act further on this matter, and hopefully the state would concur in the assessment and our understanding that this would be the final component. We'll pursue that and certainly seek it out.
Great.
Just a comment, really, I guess it's a question to the town manager. From the, I guess, the requisitions I've seen, the purchases we've made, we've actually started moving in this direction already. I noticed that all of our cruisers are more fuel efficient. This doesn't apply to the heavy construction equipment. That's
Correct.
pretty much in a separate category, but those are actually vehicles that are running more efficiently anyway with far more sophisticated computerized controls on them and such. So we've already moved in this direction. So this is just really a matter of stating what we've been doing right along. Our policy is already essentially established.
Well said, Selectman Patterson, thank you.
So I guess the motion would be to ask the town manager to make such an application? Is that what you're looking for?
Well, to authorize, actually to authorize the development of this policy and to implement it. The application, I'm presuming, unless the board feels otherwise, I'll automatically file this and the earlier proclamation, or both are in furtherance of that. The board can certainly have a separate motion on this, but I would ask for an independent motion on authorizing development and implementation of the fuel-efficient vehicle policy, if you would so move on that.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? And I actually think it's within your jurisdiction to then go ahead and make that application as you see fit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly intend to do that.
Next item is a special event. This is a recurring event. It's been recommended. This is the 4th Annual Grandmothers Against Gun Violence Vigil for Peg Noonan Park on Wednesday, December 14th, from 6 to 7 p.m.
I would move approval. I know it's happened in the past, and
Yes.
no one's raising any concerns, and it's an organization that's held other events in town as well.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? The ayes have it. Next item, back to our business, is an update on the potential medical marijuana community benefit agreement. Mr. Suso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the board will recall, at your recent meeting, you authorized, by working with town council and representatives of 7 Points to, in pursuit of that, our discussions and deliberations on that continue. We have not come to closure, so I do not have a formal proposal to bring back to the board, but I wanted to update you and let you know that continues to be underway. The other wild card that we're dealing with, as the board's aware, is on tomorrow's ballot, of course, is that recreational marijuana initiative, which could have some influence on where we ultimately end up. So that will be an important ingredient as well when we see the outcome of that process. But our work on that continues, and I will look forward to staying in touch with the board and monitoring any adjustments that need to be made.
Any questions from Mr. Suso on this?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is a request for a sign variance from the Falmouth Housing Trust. This is a temporary fundraising sign for 1 Chancery Lane, with a timetable of approximately 6 to 12 months. Ms. Connolly?
Hi, Annie Conley, Executive Director for the Falmouth Housing Trust. As you know, the project is finishing up. We're still fundraising. We have a goal of $1.2 million. We, as of this afternoon, have secured $665,000, so we're 55% there. We do have a number of major gifts in the works, but with your permission, it will be a temporary sign. I expect it will be up 6 months, if that. And it's a column with it's a thermometer, but because of Oddfellows Hall and the ionic columns, our designer made it a column instead of an actual thermometer. So, it will be on our property. I believe there's a map included and a schematic of the sign. We've had a temporary sign, yes, thanks, a temporary sign up on the portico for probably, well, I think I had it for the annual meeting, which you all were there, and then we moved it over to the site. So it's there on the portico. We'd like to actually temporarily install it as marked on the plan.
And this would be between the between the paved parking and the grassy area in front of the building?
Yes, there's about 3 feet swath. And kind of, on our property, but close-ish to the road, so that the idea is to have folks see it when they're in the public way and say, ooh, I want to support that cause.
And it is close to the property line also, so just in case no one comes back and says, so did you grant permission to put it on town property? Just to make sure it's either on, you ask for it's on town property, or you make sure it's on.
It's definitely going to be on our property. It won't be on yours.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Opposed, none. The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Another request for a sign variance. This is for the Waldorf School of Cape Cod, a temporary promotional off-premises sign. This is the intersection of Old Meeting House Road and Route 28. A location for two signs. And we can see what the sign looks like from November 15th to November 19th.
That's it. I'm Roxanne from the Waldorf School, and that's our sign, just for 5 days.
And the fair itself is going to be held in Katuitt, is that?
Yes, Katuitt, Waldorf School of Cape Cod. Yep.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. The ayes have it.
Good luck.
Next item is to have a discussion about town meeting and make sure we are prepared to speak on articles that we think are appropriate for the selectmen to come up with a statement and make sure it's not my voice they're hearing over and over again, but to make sure that they can hear all of your dulcet tones in addition.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just interject, what selectmen have, of course, is just my comments on selected town meeting articles. That's not to suggest that you may not want to weigh in on others, but it was just my attempt, and I know you've seen this before, to identify certain ones of some compelling interest. So I'm not suggesting that you limit things to that, but that's what you're looking at.
Well, in some ways, I take it if it's not on here, you're probably going to have to handle it if it needs to be handled, so.
Duly noted, Mr.
Right.
Chairman.
So if there are articles that you would particularly like to suggest that you would like to be our spokesperson, that in some ways, I'd be happy to have you take that. Otherwise, I would assume that Mr. Suso or Mr. Johnson-Staub or I will be handling it for the board.
Do we want to go through and see which ones we think might need particular explanation?
Sure. Article 3, which has to do with the incurring a fine for swimming pools, I think we're not. Article 4 is to change the design review committee to the sign review committee.
I can speak on that if you like.
Let's hope not. Let's hope
Yeah, I'm
that's
just
clear
saying,
by now.
are we trying to,
No, you're doing it right. That's the whole idea.
We're going to give you 4, 5, and 6. You've got 4, 5, and 6.
if there's a question, then I will
Exactly.
butt in.
You've got 4, 5, and 6.
Okay.
Article 7 and 8 both has to do with using the same system we used for Little Pond Sewer for future sewer projects.
So probably the water quality
Well,
committee might speak on that?
No.
Or no?
don't you
No.
think Jennifer
That would be,
McTeague
right, that would be more of a
Okay.
financial
will
side.
cover 7 and 8 both?
Right,
Okay.
I agree.
Jen?
Comprehensive plan update, Mr. Brown, do you want to take on that one also? If it comes up, I think it's probably more likely that the planning board will be
Sure.
discussing it than we will, but.
Okay.
Yep.
Charter and code sections, town voting, Articles 11, 12, and 13, I doubt will come up, but that we need to cover that.
I think the folks are going to also maybe do a quick presentation.
Right.
Exactly.
Article 14 has to do with the North Falmouth Library, and I'm prepared to, I imagine it's going to be definitely postponed, but if that does come up, I can explain that in a little more detail
Good.
as to why that's our recommendation.
Okay.
Article 15, certainly given precinct 1 and 2's, there are going to be some questions about the timing on the housing coordinator, or more so the timing on the community development director, and are we ready to ask for that classification when we are still in the process of really developing what that is. Mr. Patterson, you certainly
Yep.
handled it at the 1-2 meeting, if you'd be happy to.
I'd be happy to speak to that.
Great. Article 16 has to do with the mechanic and fleet services manager. I actually think that's probably better with Mr. Suso or with Ray Jack on that one.
Right.
But, if you need somebody to weigh in, I don't mind, because
Okay.
I have pretty good handle on how sophisticated modern automobiles are and the more expensive they get. I mean, those blue buses you see going up and down the road have 31 microprocessors that are monitoring the performance of those engines, because it's a huge investment and you need to take preventative action. And I think that's where we need somebody with more sophistication on our staff to protect our investment. So I'd be happy to make those comments.
You know, somebody from Precinct 9 made a good comment that in addition to the fact that you're upgrading this position to fleet service manager, the person still should be a master mechanic.
Yes, and then I wanted to make sure that was clarified.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Hmm.
They're not just going to be a computer or IT person.
No.
Right, they need the actual hands-on experience of
Yeah,
being a
that's,
master mechanic.
that's part of Mr. Jack's recommendation as well.
Okay.
And can I just clarify, for 15, 16, are we going, we're still going, especially for 15, we're going to have that proposed job description?
That's already been approved.
Right, but will we kind of remind folks?
That'll be in the PowerPoint.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're having
thank
a
you.
presentation to refresh.
Yep.
Okay.
We will have a PowerPoint, if I might just interject, Mr. Chairman, PowerPoint on all these job descriptions, as well as one of the other precinct meetings, can't remember which one now, was a request for the net differential. We'll have that also, an estimate of the additional or marginal incremental cost for these positions. So that'll all be presented, yeah, thank you for that
Thank you.
reminder as well.
Article 17 is being indefinitely postponed, but if they have a question, that, Mr. Suso, I think they'll be coming back to you on.
Correct, yep, no problem.
Article 18 is the supplemental budget for legal counsel, Services and Labor Wind Turbines Conservation Commission.
Frank will have a presentation on that.
We'll have a breakout for all that.
Right.
And that's going to include sort of other towns' expenditures on the average in-house counsel versus.
I've asked him to do that.
Out-house, great, but separating special litigation such as wind turbines, great.
And will he have his regular report on outstanding cases?
Litigation report, I think he gives that in April. Is that at the annual, the April or? If it's both, he'll have it.
I think it said at town meeting.
Yeah.
And didn't specify which one.
Frank's
Probably
been
best
consistent on that.
Yep. Article 19 is our capital improvements, which will mostly come from the departments and from Jennifer on that. But if there are particular ones that you have that you feel prepared to, you can cover those on line items. Same thing with Article 20. Article 21 will also have a recommendation from the Water Quality Management Committee.
Right.
So I don't think it needs to come to us. Article 22 is the funding for the remediation process for Spring Bars Road.
There are going to be questions about that, Julian. Do you have a presentation?
We'll have a major PowerPoint
That's
on
what I
that.
thought.
Yes.
Assume that would be the case, yeah.
Great.
And-
Same with 23, major PowerPoint presentation. We'll
that
team
gonna-
up with the schools to present that.
Thank you.
You were on-
Is there likely to be a question about the use of that $710,000? Are we going to hear from the library as to whether that's something that they should have access to, or?
We are prepared to address that, working with town council and others, yes. That $710,000 specifically. That is something that is required to be expended and has been carried much too long, we understand, so.
Okay.
We'll be prepared to comment on that, yes.
Article 25 is the high school athletic field, indefinitely postponed. And Article 26, I'll ask the town moderator if it is acceptable that we still give a brief report. And Ms. Moran or Ms. Ingersbrager, do you want to be involved in giving that presentation as part of your committee work, or?
For 20.
For
26.
26.
I don't know that the use, I don't know that we're ready for that yet, in terms of the programming.
Okay.
Because that gets into architectural details such as co-using the gym and
Well-
where there's going to be a kitchen if there is one. So I think that with the separate building that we're going to present at this point, it might be premature.
Okay.
And I think that this whole, if there's one thing we have to do, is be entirely centered and specific in our presentation and not be, looking at a variety of different thoughts and ideas. I think, that goes along with the timeline that the chair and the town manager presented this evening.
And I think, and to that point, I think that's sort of what would be appropriate at town meeting to really clarify is exactly what was read and presented tonight about that timeline, so that people can be really clear that we're past the site selection, we're moving to the next stage, and this is likely how it's, time-wise to break down, so that people have that sense and have that, further information about what we're looking at for the next steps and when those are, likely to happen.
Would you think the inclusion of the schematic design as we have it right now would be useful?
I do.
Okay. Sam?
I'm concerned that our moderator is going to require a positive motion to start any kind of deliberation. Can we not put this up in Article 1, which is committee reports, and just deal with it there? And you can keep it pretty concise to a couple of minutes to say, we know that Article 25 has been indefinitely postponed. We want to just give you an update on the status. We do it that way.
Well, it would be, in some degree, it would be a council on aging. I mean, would that
No, I
be
think
It's a selectman.
It needs to come
They're
from us.
selectmen, right.
It's
I will-
our action.
I'll ask David which he's more comfortable with. I would prefer to have it be at the timing of Article 26, so that, because that's when people may be expecting the conversation then at the beginning of the meeting. But I'll see if he's not comfortable with that, then I'll
It'll be a
request that we
fallback.
give a report of the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, well, I guess the question is, are we just giving a report on the status, or are we actually trying to get into a deliberation?
No deliberation, just a report on the status.
We're not asking for money.
And so what we've done in the past when we've done this is I give a 3-minute speech about why I'm going to be encouraging indefinite postponement. And it's a little bit of leeway he sometimes gives to get the information out there. We're expecting we're going to have that meeting on Thursday. Usually we have it as a
Yes.
Friday meeting, right?
Yeah,
It's not going to be this Friday because we have Veterans Day.
right, yeah, it's on Thursday. It's been scheduled for Thursday. I'll double check that date.
Like
Or that time.
9 o'clock likely?
I think it is,
Okay, great.
morning.
Article 27 and 30 is the CPC articles, and 31.
Well, if you need somebody to speak on 31, I
Okay.
can support it if necessary.
9 a.m., Mr. Chairman,
Great, thank
Thursday.
you. And then we also have petitions article, I think it's Article 26?
Is it 26?
No, 26 is the senior center.
All right, so,
Which one are we looking for?
Article 35,
All right.
and we're recommending, we have positive recommendation on the Town Department Consolidation Tenant Review Committee.
right.
We did have a lot of questions at precinct meetings,
Right.
just about the scope of that, so I don't know, I anticipate that there will be questions about, first because we're asking the moderator to appoint, and that's not generally what happens, and then also because there isn't a timeline, for when it will kind of go into effect and then when it will terminate. I know we just got a lot of questions at precinct meetings about just some further detail about it.
Right. The only thing I'm suggesting we have someone available to why did we recommend positively on it.
Right.
The further questions would be up to the town meeting and petitioner
Sure.
to answer, but we can just say why.
I'd be
we
happy
vote.
to speak on that.
Great. But there was also a question at precinct 1 and 2 about a finance committee member being able to be appointed to a different committee, and the charter precludes that. They could be on the committee without being a voting member, but then you would only have 4 members who are voting, and if you're actually going to vote on something, which was the other point was raised, would this committee actually ever vote on anything, or would they just be doing investigative,
Right.
looking into it?
No, I'm certainly happy to speak to the piece about why we voted the way that we did.
Any other items that we think we need to, just a heads up on our agenda for Monday, we do have a Board of Selectmen meeting scheduled before town meeting for all 2 or 3 days that we're going to have town meeting. The Monday one is right now scheduled for 6:15, starting with open session. It will then go into executive session briefly in case we have any information back on the FAR trial litigation.
And Mr. Chair, may I ask, because this is my first town meeting as a selectman, but I have to be out of the state for Thursday and Friday of this week. There's nothing between now and Monday okay. I just wanted to make sure that if there was, that I was.
Just precinct meetings Thursday night, but you're familiar with those?
Right, and then, yeah.
Yeah, nothing directly town meeting related.
Great, okay, thank you.
One question that also did come up at precinct 1 and 2 had to do with the dredge and hoping they have information as to how much has been getting used, and how, if we're going to buy a new dredge, and we can't even use the one we have because we don't have, not sorry, the dredge, the pump-out boat.
Yeah.
And just so if we can get information to make sure, just to give Greg a heads up that
Okay, sure.
that the use of the pump-out boat was raised at the precinct meeting.
Okay, I'll let him know.
Yeah, people are definitely asking questions, and we're a little concerned about how it was going to be distributed.
Okay.
Next item, individual selectmen's reports.
Just have less of a report, but just, obviously, Election Day is tomorrow, but just wanted to really commend Michael Palmer and everyone who, made the early voting just run so smoothly, and really haven't heard a negative thing about it. Was so impressed. It's not a small undertaking, and I think it's really daunting to do something like that the first time. And really, the staff just did an excellent job. So hopefully tomorrow will be as smooth, but really impressed with taking on a challenge like that and meeting it the way that our town employees did.
People are so complimentary.
Yes.
And the interesting thing will be the effect on tomorrow. Like
Yes.
if it's less crowded, more organized, more compliments.
Hopefully there'll be an overall increase in voter turnout, because
Right.
there's 48 million people had voted as of yesterday morning already, so it's got to help.
Across the country.
One of the pieces of equipment they were able to use, we don't have the money to have it in every single precinct, but the checking the voter rolls electronically, Michael just said, was so much easier than flipping through the books.
Right. Yep.
And so it may come back to a request for some finances to
Have that available.
have available in all 9 precincts, that they can, do that check-in. If we had 2 of those machines in every precinct, it would be much more efficient and I think probably more accurate also.
Indeed, I was impressed with it. I did vote early, and I was impressed with how quickly you just moved through the line.
Right.
So, yeah, I would certainly be supportive of it if that is the recommendation he chooses to make.
Well, I could comment on the Water Quality Management Committee meeting that I attended this week, that they were discussing the innovative systems, and I guess they're really doing well with the nitrogen removal on the innovative systems, to the point where they're comfortable now saying that Falmouth is going to set a standard of 12 milligrams per liter, where the state standard is 19 milligrams per liter. That's performance standard. And George Hoyfelder was there, and he was explaining about what the layer cake system, which is takes a regular old Title V system and puts a mixture of sawdust and topsoil or some sort of mixture under it as a carbon medium, so that it's a very simple system. It's coming along, and there's a state grant for $758,000 to install 12 of these systems around in this area, so that's coming along fast. Separately, Mr. Mike McGrath was there to speak to his own research, that he's very inclined to believe that natural attenuation in the earth, in our upper watersheds, is going to naturally attenuate 50% of the nitrogen. He's very convinced of this, so that could be some bearing on our future wastewater planning in town. So,
And can I
Which means you just
add to that?
yeah.
So the Water Quality Coalition has had the same presentations, and the point you made about Mike McGrath's research is that all of the numbers, the standards might change, because there may be much more filtering than we appreciate, which could really help costs going forward. So that very point, Mike McGrath's been doing this for many, many years.
Right.
And that is going to be incorporated in the data going forward, so.
So we may not be forced to do as much work in the upper watersheds as we had been inclined to believe before.
Right.
And we know where to put the treatments, essentially, because we need to put it closer to where where the estuaries are, because we know there's going to be natural attenuation as the groundwater flows through the soils.
Right.
So we know where to invest our money to get the best return.
Exactly. And so now that the new thinking is, I guess nationwide, the standard is 300 meters from a water body is what you consider to be what you need to control and attenuate. but Falmouth has this unique geology where the water moves so much faster that it may be, the more important area may be 300 feet, as low as just the immediate coastline might be our biggest concern. So that's the latest.
Okay.
Mr. Patterson?
Attended the Friends of Knobska board meeting that occurred recently, and they are actually working on kind of taking the architectural conceptual design and starting to think about implementing it and getting to the point of construction. And of course, that's renovation, really, and preservation. Attended the CPC meeting. They're moving through articles and applications that will come up in the April town meeting now. And then went to the bus station. I guess you'd call it ribbon cutting of sorts. Groundbreaking with an air hammer.
For EDIC.
And then Sue chaired and did a very nice job of it. It was a great, and along with David Vieira, but a really symbolic event and a great project that's going to put a new face on the gateway, one of the gateways to Falmouth. So nice to see that moving along. And I think that's about it.
And there,
I really didn't have a report, but I feel compelled to mention the fact that Megan and I also met at Knobska, and it was very distracting that Sam was running around actually fixing the heat on his own time for this iconic place. And very, very charming. So in case you don't know all of the
all of his talents. Yeah, but really a beautiful visit. I would encourage folks, if you haven't, I mean, even if you live for, I think you forget that, you can go up inside and look around, and it's really phenomenal. We were there on a really stormy, windy day, and just, the work that's being done there is so impressive for this treasure that we have in this community. So.
And Catherine Bumpus was literally giddy about just all the plans moving forward and the incredible potential. So this is going to be a great project.
Yeah, I might just, since we have the public potential listening, I think that the Friends of Knobska are still opening up the lighthouse, including the light tower, not the keeper's house, on Tuesdays between 11 and 1 o'clock, continuing through until Thanksgiving, and then they're looking at other options to open the place up for public. But it really, I've been there many times helping out in different ways, and there's a lot of volunteer effort being made, not just my own effort. Jeff Thomas was here earlier. He's been organizing the tours of the lights on Tuesdays, and a lot of people turning out to support that area. But this is a special landmark, and while I'm there on the various occasions, I am amazed at how many people are there at the light continuously. And sometimes, and this was in the summer when it was daylight savings time, but I was there at 9:30 one time, went outside, it was dark, and there were still 5 or 6 people around the lighthouse, taking pictures and looking at it and renewing it on. It is truly a special place for us in Falmouth, and it's something that the efforts of this board, I can't help but respect them for everything they're doing to make this come to fruition. It's something everybody runs into. Highfield Hall is sort of up and out of the way and remote, but that lighthouse, the road races go by, and the marathon this weekend went by, this past weekend. It is just such an important landmark, and I'm astounded that you guys are commenting about how beautiful it is every time we go there. It's just it's uplifting, I think, is the right word for it.
Just a heads up on 2 agenda items that I will be putting on our next November 21st meeting. One is the parking meters, both at the Heights and in Woods Hole, the request for the suspension of a certain number of the meters in the Woods Hole area. And also I've asked Mr. Suso and Mr. Duffy to give us a little bit of update on where the town or the state stands with Uber and the distinction between Uber and taxis in town. And I'm not sure we can move forward with that topic, but just to give you a little update on that.
is there any role for selectmen in looking into the Steamship Authority's situation where they've had a recent public comment period where a lot of people sent comments to the designated email address, but only 1 or 2 were noticed, and then it was brought back to their attention. I mean, I wonder how the selectmen have a role to deal with that. Is there such
Well, on the 21st, I've also asked Betsy Gladfelter to give us a status update on a number of Steamship Authority issues, and that would be appropriate time for us to either give some comments back to her or make a decision as to did we want to enter into, because I know there's an appeal of the licensing being granted from local residents in Woods Hole. And when we get that update, I make a decision, do we want to add a statement from the board on that issue?
Okay.
I'd ask for that agenda item, and also, those are public meetings, so you can certainly attend and comment yourself. I've done that a number of times, so, I mean, they're held all over. Sometimes it's tough to get to New Bedford, but some are in Falmouth, obviously Woods Hole, some, you know, and if you do go to the islands, you can make arrangements with the administrator, and you will have an official pass for the ride to the meeting. So that's just the process that they use, so just so you know of that opportunity as well.
What are you saying, they pick you up at the boat and give you a ride?
It's not quite that nice, but you do get a ticket.
Okay.
And you get to park.
Oh, okay.
But they sort of designate where they want you to go, so that you're on time for the meeting.
I see.
Mr. Suso?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just as a reminder, I don't know whether you still want to pursue this on this timetable or not, but you and I, as you know, had discussed some time ago about the possibility of a discussion with the selectmen about the transportation bond bill set aside, or designation, I guess is a better term, that you might want to wish to speak about that further with the board in the month of November, which would mean the 21st if that does go forward. And if that's still a determination, that will be appearing on the agenda as well. Having said that, if I could just make a comment, I know the members of the board saw, as I did, a local newspaper had an account about that unfortunately contained some misinformation. I think the board's aware of the misinformation that was there, but no one from the town, it appears, was contacted about that. So it unfortunately did contain that misinformation, which we certainly will clarify. The designation in the legislation was different from what was represented, and so it was a bit misleading. And that is the reason that members of this board had concerns, because it was a much narrower in terms of what was identified. But I have contacted Senator DiMacedo's office about the possibility of expanding the concept of what would be looked at, that I think would be of much greater potential benefit if this board is so interested. Having said that, that can be talked about further at the next meeting, but also want to confirm that no money has been set aside. The transportation bond bill does not earmark dollars. It only designates projects, millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of projects, most of which end up never being funded. So we have to keep in mind that this is not money that is sitting there waiting to be utilized, but that if a community positions itself well enough, it enhances the possibility that the governor's office will release funds for that particular use. So there is no slam dunk in any of these processes, but look forward to talking about that. And a couple other, yes.
If I might, Mr. Chair. So are you referring to the $175,000 that was mentioned in connection with the parking study and the chamber?
Correct, correct. Yeah, and it was represented as a different study than parking in the local press. And it was suggested that the town was somehow confused about that. Well, the confusion was that we understood what was actually in the legislation, unlike what was represented, which was not the broad study that was suggested. It was a very narrow study and a very targeted study, and therein lies the challenge in terms of potentially properly assessing the town's real needs. I know we touched on that a little bit in the past, so but there'll be an opportunity to talk about that further if the board so determines.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was my pleasure to attend, as many members of the board did, precinct meetings last week. We do have, I believe, the final 3 precincts
6 took place last week, 3 are on Thursday evening at 2 different locations. So that's, as always, when there are multiple ones on one night, it's always a bit challenging, but I know the members of the board continue to attend those as well. Thank you. So we are adjusting, and we talked a little bit about that tonight, the intended PowerPoint presentations to be certain that we can adequately address the issues raised. So we really appreciate precinct town meeting members who do attend those sessions, raise questions, and give us the opportunity to really be proactive and answer the important questions that they have, not only those evenings, but also in advance for all of town meeting. So that will guide us in our preparations this week. Veterans Day was already spoken about, and we look forward to that annual event and joining members of the board and Veterans Committee and the entire community this Friday. I also did want to note that, just as a reminder, we are at the high school with town meeting rather than the Lawrence School. I know that's been talked about here a bit, and Chairman Jones reminded all at the beginning of the meeting. But just as a reminder to the board, we will not be sitting up on the stage as we were at the Lawrence. There will only be about a half dozen individuals on the stage, along with a moderator, and selectmen, myself, and department heads will be on the lower right facing the stage. That's where we will plan on sitting sort of as a group so that we are close enough to be able to access and respond to questions at the microphone. But we won't have the stage time that we've had in the past, so we will see how that goes beginning next Monday. And also, as the board's aware, we've had a breakout room where you've met. Selectman Jones referred to the 6:15 meeting and brief executive session. We don't have that room selected yet, but we'll be notifying members of the board where that will be at the high school, and I'm sure the Finance Committee and others are going to have similar breakouts before a town meeting as per usual. So more to come on that.
Is your office going to go ahead and arrange for those rooms? Because there are quite a few. I know CPC is planning to meet as well. So I hope that we're reaching out to the committees and making sure that there are spaces reserved for them ahead of time.
I will have Diane check on the other committees. I know we're doing it for the Board of Selectmen. I'm not certain how those other committees did it at the Lawrence School in the past, but we'll reach out and make sure that everybody is making those arrangements.
Well, I think it would be better to have one, like your office, take the responsibility, then communicate with the schools so that they have designated classrooms for those meetings.
Yeah, we're happy to do that as long as we can find out which committees want to meet. Right. I know there's a couple that we're pretty certain of, but beyond that, it's a little bit more of an unknown. But yeah, we're happy to make that contact.
Well, I think to start with, you know which committees are involved in the articles, and you can easily reach out to them and make sure that they're
CPC and FinCom definitely, right?
Yes,
yeah.
Sometimes school committee.
School committee, yeah, my guess is they're probably
take
taking
care
care
of themselves.
So, but we're happy to reach out on that, no problem at all. So that's, that's the high school. We'll see how that goes. I've got another note here. I think not. Lastly, I just want to, again, extend my welcome as town manager to my newest colleague, Assistant Town Manager Peter Johnson-Staub. Peter, it's great to have you with us today on your inaugural day, and we're finishing early tonight, it would seem. So it's great that members of the board are spoiling you, but we must be realistic about it. Occasionally we go a little later than this, but thanks for your help taking notes tonight too, and I know that Peter had an opportunity this morning. We had a department head meeting to meet most of the department heads, but I appreciate his willingness to jump in and take notes with a lot of new faces here tonight, and of course I'll be supplementing that, and we look forward to many meetings to come. So welcome, Peter. Great to have you with us.
And I as well. It was a great first day.
Good. Glad to hear that.
We even got to walk on the bike path for a little while, so it really pulled out all the stops. Walk on the bike path and the 9:30 end time, so.
Yep.
Yeah, we're still courting, I guess. With that, a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.